started in 1940s. Oh, 1943 to be exact. Walter Pitts and Warren McCulloch. They come out with a new article titled A Logical Calculus of the Idea Immanent in Nervous Activity. It was the first mathematical model of a neural network. Well, in this case, a neuron. And it described that neurons can be in an on or off state, depending on specific context. You see, using math, calculus to be precise, other functions too, they prove that neuronic activity can be represented by a mathematical problem or a logical function, basically saying that neural networks can perform any kind of computational task. Now, at the time, I'm sure it sounded a little absurd, and sure there may have been people who didn't really understand what they were talking about. But as time went on, we start to see a pattern with the evolution of things. Let's keep going. 1949, a man named Donald Hebb, he released an article titled The Organization of Behavior. See, Donald had this saying, neurons that fire together, wire together. Donald believed that neurons work together to become stronger. The more neurons work together in this neural network kind of space, the stronger they got. Later in his paper, Hebb proposed that neuronic or neural pathways increase in strength after repeated use, which created cell assemblies or creates cell assemblies that form the basis of learning and memory. You starting to see a pattern here on where this video is going? No? Well, let's keep going. 1 year later, exactly, 1950, a man named Alan Turing released another article. This one is called Computing, Machinery, and Intelligence. Okay, now you're seeing the pattern, right? We started with a neuron, how a neuron works, on and off signals. We escalated a little bit further to a network of neurons, neural networks. And now we're talking about intelligence and machinery. Let's dig into what Alan Turing discovered. You see, in Alan's article, he determined if a machine can process in a way that humans could. There was a fundamental question that Alan asked in his article, and that was, can machines think like humans? The answer wasn't as simple. You see, Alan wasn't looking to answer the question if machines can be like humans or machines can think like humans. Instead, he proposed to throw that question away altogether. Alan proposed a new kind of question based on a scenario. You see, this scenario was, let's say this person A, some kind of male, we'll say, person B, female, and then person C, some kind of like intermediary, we'll say. And let's say they're all having a conversation together. What Alan proposed is there a way to remove person A, the man, from the equation or from the conversation, insert a computer, and have the computer still produce a desirable output in a way where it is hard to determine if that computer was an actual computer or still person A, who's the man that we removed. It was a groundbreaking proposal because this suggests that machines or computers today can produce similar outputs that we as humans process in our brains and produce. Getting a little closer to what we're talking about here, aren't we? Let's keep going. 1952, Arthur Samuel created a new program, checkers. You get to play checkers with a computer. Yeah, in fact, that was probably one of the earliest, machine learning algorithms. If you haven't noticed, machine learning is what this whole video is about. But that was one of the first algorithms in machine learning that we can think of. And the way it worked is the more you played with this machine, the better it got. It would learn as you're playing. It would learn which mistakes would be made and it would improve those mistakes. Today we call that reinforcement learning, and we'll go over that later in this video. But the checkers program was basically reinforcing itself. It was learning as it was going. Eventually it might have been too good to beat, but that part's for history. Let's keep going. 1957, The Perceptron by Franklin Rosenblatt. Sounds like a Transformers kind of thing, but it pretty much was. This was an algorithm where you can give it a lot of input and it gives you a predictable output. So it makes predictions based on input. One of the first prediction-based machine learning algorithms that we know today. So now we have reinforcement learning, we have predictions. How did we get to the machine learning that we have today? Well, we're almost there. Let's go a little further. 1967. The nearest neighbor algorithm was an algorithm that allowed for computers to learn by pattern recognition. So the computer would study certain patterns and then make predictions based on these patterns, these historic patterns. Nearest neighbor basically says that similar inputs should also have similar outputs. And that's the whole concept of how this algorithm worked. Fast forward, I feel like we're like flying through time, but bear with me. 1979, Stanford students create something called the Stanford cart. It was just a cart. This cart can navigate on its own. It can identify obstacles and avoid them. It's a really cool concept to this new machine learning. It provided some kind of physical, tangible way to see machine learning in action. Let's keep going. We're not quite there yet. 1981, Gerald DeJong. He created something called explanation-based learning. This is where the machine learning algorithm pretty much takes the training data and it removes unnecessary data from that training data and it creates like a set of rules to abide by based on the relevant data that remains once the unimportant data is removed. Enter 1990. The work for machine learning shifted a bit. It went from knowledge-driven to understanding how computers think to more data-driven, generating a large amount of data, feeding it to these machines, and letting the machines learn from this data and produce some kind of output. And you can imagine where such a complex algorithm led to. I hope you can imagine, right? In 1997, IBM released this really cool software. It was a game of chess. They released a game of chess in order to beat the world champion at chess, and their machine learning chess game, it beat them, and that was a breakthrough that IBM had. 2006, deep learning. That term is coined. Deep learning is pretty much a concept that explains how machines, computers, are able to see like text and images and interpret those texts and images and produce some kind of output. So a new way to learn based on given text, images, and things that we generally didn't recognize as machine learning back in the day. By the way, Jeffrey Hinton, he was the one that coined the word deep learning. 2010, Microsoft. They created something called the Kinect Technology, and it was basically able to identify human characteristics. We'll say about 20 features or characteristics at a rate of about 30 per second, which is relatively fast considering the evolvement of technology over the time. Then IBM comes and takes a stage again. Chess wasn't enough, beating the world's chess player. Now IBM uses machine learning to beat somebody in Jeopardy. IBM is they have a vendetta against people for some reason, but yeah, they beat some competitors at Jeopardy. Google, 2011, they released something called a Google Brain, which is basically another algorithm that is able to interpret things in the same way a cat does. I don't know why they chose a cat, but can't argue with that. Then later they created another algorithm that can browse YouTube videos and identify pictures of cats or cats in the video. Google loves cats, if you haven't noticed, and so cats actually led the way to machine learning, if you think about it. 2014, Facebook created something called Deep Face. Not deep fake, but deep face. It was an algorithm that was able to recognize and verify humans in the same way that humans can recognize and verify other humans. So just humans, but computer version of humans, basically. 1 year later, we had an explosion of machine learning. Microsoft, Amazon, Google, they all just started releasing machine learning models. Tools started popping up, machine learning this, machine learning that, and here we are today, machine learning. So now we understand the history of machine learning, but what's the point? Why was machine learning even so popular? What was the whole point of even trying to have a machine mimic a human? This sounds like a waste of time, right? Maybe back then it actually was a waste of time. We don't know. Maybe it was just some kind of excitement that people had in order to interact with computers in the same way that we interact with people. Maybe we were crazy. Who knows? What I could tell you is that machine learning is more useful today than it probably was back then. Let me give you a scenario. Let's say that I hire you to make me an application, mobile application. And since Google likes cats, I also like cats, right? So this mobile application is going to be responsible for identifying animals, especially cats. And so you need to create features, so characteristics of animals that are specific to cats. Okay, cool. You create a feature, pointy ears. Yeah, cats have pointy ears. So do foxes. Okay, well, you give it whiskers. Well, there are many animals with whiskers. Paws, claws, you get the point. Eventually, you're going to start creating rules endlessly because you're going to try to get so specific to a cat as you possibly can so that it doesn't confuse the cat for another animal. Now, that's just one animal. Let's say you need to identify as many animals as possible. You probably won't get this done in your lifetime. So there goes machine learning. Machine learning says you take take all that data, all the characteristics, and you dump it into a data set, and you let this learning algorithm train on this data, and you let that algorithm make predictions with, we'll assume there's a high accuracy, minimal false positives, 99% accuracy, and the predictions should recognize animals based on the phone's camera and accurately predict what that animal would be. So we get to see our cats 99.9% of the time, hopefully, if the accuracy says so. That's what makes machine learning so useful. It saves us time. That's pretty much the bane of it, actually. Yeah, it saves us time. Pretty much can end this video here, but I won't, because we still haven't made any machine learning algorithm. We don't know how it works. We haven't gotten into it. So let's actually get into it. In this series, we'll make our data set. We'll set up our Python environment. We're going to make a machine learning model with Python. We'll learn how it works. We'll learn all the terminology. We're going to become machine learning experts, because when I win, you win. But before we do that, we need to learn some terminology. So bear with me here. When we say machine learning, today we're actually talking about relatively 3 different types. There's supervised, unsupervised, and reinforcement learning. Now, supervised learning usually has something called a label. A label is usually like a yes or no, think of true or false, 0 or 1. Think of something like that, just for simplicity's sake. What supervised learning does is you give the machine learning algorithm a set of data and the label. So you have to tell it, hey, this is the label based on the training data. Then you give it a test data, and a machine learning algorithm will make predictions based on the input that you gave it and the label. So the algorithm is learning from context and is able to make predictions based on that context. We'll get to see how supervised learning is, as that's the actual model that we'll be making throughout the series. So as the videos progress, you'll see supervised learning. Unsupervised learning. This is a little different from supervised learning, where you don't have a label, and in fact the data itself is not really structured. Unsupervised learning is about giving a machine learning model unstructured data and letting it learn from that unstructured data to make predictions, high accuracy based predictions. You'll get to see some of that. Maybe we'll make a model that can do something like that in a way future video. We'll do supervised learning first, and then lastly there's reinforcement learning. And I don't know if I need to explain this. Checkers, chess. Reinforcement learning is a way to provide a reward system for machine learning algorithms. Think of chess. The reward is either win or lose. If you lose, the machine learning algorithm knows I need to adjust my approach. If the algorithm wins, it records what it did to win and learns from that. So it's striving to reach win every single time, because that's the reward that it wants. That's the ideal reward. So the algorithm keeps learning, keeps changing its inputs based on how many times you interact with this algorithm, and it will aim for the highest possible win ratio in order to receive that reward every single time. That's reinforcement learning. And we see that IBM loved it with Jeopardy and chess. And we need to learn a few more models before we move on to some next steps. So we're going to speed run a little bit of the vocabulary here, but don't worry, you'll learn as the videos progress exactly what we mean, because we're going to keep talking about this. Training. When I say training or training data, I mean a subset or portion of a data set that's used to train the model. So by training, we really just mean examples. You give the machine model some examples, and based on those examples, the model learns to make predictions or assumptions about a specific whatever you're giving it. It'll make the predictions. Feature. You're going to hear that word feature a lot, so it's important to know what the feature means. It's pretty much individual characteristics about the data that's being observed. So for lack of a better word, it's just characteristics. That's what features are. Target. The target is simple. It's just the output variable that the machine learning model is trying to predict. Then you have your loss function, which is just a measurement of how well the model's predictions actually match the target values. So you'll learn about that as well. Okay, we got all of these vocabulary terms, I guess you can call it, out the way. Again, you'll hear this later. Let's talk about a very simple process of how you would implement a machine learning model. First, you would get your data set. Of course, can't have a model without data, because the machine learning model shifted from intelligence to data. So that's what we kind of need in order to work with our model. Now, you can make a data set, which we probably will do, or you can create one. In this case, let's say we make a data set. Well, we start by collecting raw data. You formulate that data, so you make it look pretty for the model to handle. Then you take that data set, the pretty data set that we created, you take a portion of that data set and you call that portion training. That's your training data set. The other half is going to be your testing data set, and we'll talk about the testing part of things a little later. Next, you want to process. Well, you can pre-process your training data, but after that, you want to process that training data and you want to use it to train your machine learning model. To do do that, you have to choose what we call a model candidate. So choose a model that's going to work best for the type of data that you have. If you have classification, you probably want to use a classification based model. I'll show you what I mean later on this. Just bear with me. I generally recommend to choose various models and train a lot of models on your data. And then you have candidates for the best model, and you want to choose the best model to use for the final product. So in this case, we'll say use several models, grab the top performers, and you'll use those for your final product. Okay, I gave you a lot to chew. Before we actually start creating our machine learning model, we need to learn a little bit about Python and Jupyter notebooks, because that's pretty much what we're going to do in order to get things set up and get this model working and seeing results. So stay tuned. In the next video, we'll set up our Python environment. We'll learn a little bit about Python, and then the following video, we're jumping in. We're just going to start working on our machine learning model, understanding the different results, variance, correlation. We'll even dive into things like how to determine good variance, bad variance, good correlation, bad correlation, overfitting, underfitting, confusion matrix, talk about true positive, true negative, false negative, pre-processing data, label encoding, feature selection. There's a lot of things that go into creating this sort of machine learning model, and we'll go through that all with Python. Thank you for watching this video. If you liked it, make sure you like it, comment below, subscribe if you haven't subscribed. If you're interested in making your own model, stay tuned. Make sure you hit the bell, because when those videos fire off, that's your ticket. Remember, when I win, you win. We all win. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next video.